Hey everybody, Abe Savage, and I am at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City in one of my favorite rooms in the world. I am in the Arms and Armor department, and it's hard to overestimate how much this room means to me as a person. When I was 14 years old, Excalibur came out, a movie directed by John Borman, and I went and saw it with my dad. And in it were just like endless numbers of gleaming suits of armor, and people walking around in the armor, and people using it all day long and wearing it at dinner time. And it is the movie that celebrates armor more than any other. And I must have been talking about it a lot because my dad was like, I know where to take you. And my dad was an artist, my dad was a painter, and he was a museum goer. So my dad, I grew up in Tarrytown, first few years here in New York City. My dad would go to museums all the time, just recreationally, just to walk around, see what's going on. It was sort of part of the regular breath of his life. So he knew all of the museums in New York like the back of his hand. And he said, you gotta come with me into the Met and see this room. And he walked me in here, and I specifically remember walking in the front door and seeing these guys. And there were horses, there were mounted knights in armor in Excalibur, but nothing quite prepared me for this. And I want to tell you, I'm standing here and, the horse is only a little taller than me, and everyone actually looks really small because they were small people in this armor. But in my head, these are 40 feet tall. This is how I remember them, is walking in and just seeing this, holy cow, I had no idea. It's hard to explain, but it's like Excalibur made me fall in love with armor. And then I came here and saw that armor was, if anything, 2 or 3 times more interesting, more beautiful, more variegated, and more special than I had even surmised after falling in love with it. So this room is very special to my heart. It's also a really, really important collection. The first time I went to the National Portrait Gallery in London, I was like, oh my God, these are all the paintings that are in my textbooks about art. This isn't just oh, it's a Degas, it's the Degas, it's the Picasso that you think about when you think about Picasso. This is that for armor. Every piece here is kind of incredible, and their ability to collect across the range of time and utility. Armor wasn't just one thing. It wasn't something you put on and ran into battle. It was a system. They call a suit of armor a harness for a reason, because the whole system hangs off a body. I could go on for hours and hours, but this room, to me, is one of the great examples of why museums exist. And you hear all sorts of wonderful things. People talk about them as palaces to objects and the stories they tell, the way we carry our knowledge forward. But this room kicked a 15-year-old's brain into a zone that it has never left. And that, to me, is the most important reason why people spend time collecting things like this, putting them together, educating other people about how amazing we were and are and can be. Yeah, I love this room. I'm so glad to have an example of this here. I really wanted to talk to you about this kind of arm. This is a wheel lock pistol, and it is a very early kind of pistol. Another one of my favorite museums, the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, has an entire wall of these. And if you are ever in Kensington in London, just walk over and go see it, because it'll blow your mind. The thing I love about the wheel lock pistols is that ornament and decoration were part and parcel of their construction, and they are the steampunkiest things that steampunk ever imagined to be brought into the world. The fineness of the etching. Oh, right, that's the other thing I love about this room. It's the closer you get to the armor, the closer you get to the pieces, they get more beautiful, but they also become more clearly handmade. We live in this age where everything can be stamped and made to high precision, and it's getting better all the time. But every piece of metal in this room was like handmade by a person over days or weeks or months or years. And their handwork shows on every piece. Like every edge is not perfect. And there's something Terry English told me when we were making armor in Cornwall was he never uses a ruler to measure rivet spacing up a piece of armor. He just uses his eye because he's like, I've handled enough pieces of original armor to know that they weren't using rulers. Why should I? All right, in talking about the hand-hewn nature of the objects in this room, this gorget, this neck piece is an amazing example of just some insane workmanship. The detail in the scene that is depicted on here is so lovingly precise. It's incredible that it survives. Now, I want you to also take a look at this one. This is the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus. And baby Jesus has such an adult and weird face. But like, when I see this, I realize that this is like, you talk about armor as more than a weapon, more than a protection. It's also fashion and it's also technology, and that's all extant here. Right. And then there's jousting, which is like, this is jousting armor, and this is meant really specifically, you think, to protect you, right? But in fact, only kind of. The metal protects you, but this is meant to take the lance of your opponent. They wanted impact. Jousting was like wrestling. That's the best way I think you should think about what was going on when they were having these big tournaments. It wasn't like sport, it was like WWE. All that makes it even feel to me like more of a hug. And then now I just like, let's go down and we can finish here and just look at the loving file work on the side of this gauntlet and how each curve, each place that a curve terminates and continues to a straight is just a little bit different. I like see a room, I see it full of interns and apprentices and masters, and everyone sitting there filing. They must have just filed for years, for decades, for centuries to make these things. But the file doing these things, and then you see those little curves, and they're not totally similar, but they do line up, and you do get this feeling of coherence. The maker of me is very happy. Every time I show pictures of this room to people, they're like, how did horses wear armor? That must have been so hard for them. And I want to tell you, like, horses are amazing. They can get used to a lot. And I am quite sure that people who had armor made for their horses spent their money lovingly protecting their precious creatures. When I sat on horseback in my armor in Cornwall, in order to prep the horse I was going to sit on, Terry English took pieces of my armor over to that horse every day for like 10 days and just like rattled it near the horse and let him see the gleaming aluminum, let him understand what was happening. And even still, the first time I got on that horse, all that sound and bombast made him kick me off. We were able to get me onto the back of the horse and get the shot that we wanted, and it was very cooperative. And also, this isn't heavy stuff. When it's contoured to your body, it's quite light. These are beasts of burden. They could easily handle it. And like I said, I mean, none of this stuff was cheap. Someone who was having a suit of this armor made for themselves was spending a literal fortune. And then to cover their horse, like that fortune they spent on the horse is like a testament to the love. Oh man.